This is the Surly Grognards for November 25th, 2014. This is Peter Bowman, and as usual, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Eric Carlson. How are you doing tonight, Eric?
Doing all right.
Most excellent, most excellent. Getting ready for Thanksgiving?
Yeah. I was going to say I'm prepared, but then I realized, no, I'm not. I mean, all I really have to do is, make it to the train and hope nothing catches on fire or explodes. But something will, and then I'll have to clean it up.
Yep. So, this week, for reasons that we will explain during the show, I decided that we should talk about. We've talked around this a bit here and there, but we don't really focus on this as a topic. But I figured we'd talk a bit about talking about the early days of a new campaign. It's because I'm starting up a new alternate D&D game on Saturdays with the crew.
Yay!
And I've been thinking about what I'm going to do for the first adventure, what I'm going to do for the first few things here and there. And I thought, this is actually probably something good to talk about, just in general, both from the player's point of view and both from the game master's point of view and from the player's point of view. Because the early days of a campaign are always they're always tricky and interesting about finding your feet, the campaign's feet.
Yeah, the first few sessions are always everyone feeling out, their characters and everyone else's characters and what the world's like and the general tone of the campaign.
Right. That's the big thing, is that, as a game master, I can have lots of ideas about what I want the tone of the campaign to be. But that doesn't mean that's what it's going to end up being.
Yeah, it will quite possibly go in a completely opposite direction of where you want it to go. These things often do.
Right. And as long as it goes in a direction that everybody's having fun in, that's great.
Yes.
But I figured I'd talk a little bit about things that you can do as a player, things you can do as a GM to make the game more successful early on. Because it's sort of the most important part of the campaign to get not necessarily get right, but to get over the hump of. Because a lot of games will sort of fall off and sort of disintegrate after the first few sessions if they don't grab everybody.
And that happens, or can happen.
Right. I've had a few games that have last more than 4 sessions and such, and that's fine. So it just didn't end up working. Hell, I've had a couple of games that ended after the first session. It's this isn't going to work with this crew and such.
And it's just these guys aren't clicking.
Yeah,
I've been in a few games where it's just everyone's all excited, but everyone's got different ideas about where it's going to go, but no one realizes that. And usually it's good to nip that in the bud quickly, though that doesn't always happen.
Right. I mean, that's one of the reasons I generally try to get people to talk about their characters and backgrounds and stuff ahead of time. I ideally like having a powwow session before we actually start playing, where the players can talk about stuff and where they want to go and such, and what they think, thoughts on the world and all that stuff, so they can ask questions before we start.
Yeah, and that's important, because GM might want to do a real high adventure, flying boat, sky pirate, high fantasy thing, and everyone else wants to do, and someone else might want to do a real gritty street level, just squeaking by in the keeping out of the thieves guild's eyes, and someone else might want to do the whole adventure and crusader type of thing, and none of that works together.
Right, someone else might want to do urban political stuff and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally understand that. So yeah, so I guess I would definitely say it's definitely a good idea as a general rule of thumb to try to make sure that everybody's on the same page before you actually start playing.
Yes, and keeping flexible is also important. A fair amount of flexibility is kind of required for all parties involved with role playing, just in general.
Yeah, I'd
be surprised how often that doesn't register for some people.
Well, Well, I mean, some people are more flexible about that sort of thing than others. That's just part of
Yeah.
their nature. But I agree. It really helps to have a flexible mindset, both as a player and as a game master.
Yes.
I know as a game master, I've shifted tacks on campaigns more than a few times. I come up with an idea and then had to go, okay, we're going to shift focus this way now because that's where the players really want to go.
Right. Right.
I've never done that with with our crew, Eric.
No, never. No, I certainly can't think of at least 3 separate instances where that's happened.
I guess I'd say I've had a few where it's been pretty clear we've gone the direction I was anticipating. The MechWarrior game I ran with you guys on the Monday, Tuesday crew, whichever it is. This is currently Monday crew. The MechWarrior game basically went where I was expecting it to go.
I thought that shifted sort of a weird tack from where you wanted to go, because the impression I got is you wanted to do much more of like a rapid response unit, and we quickly became like the prefab fortress unit.
Well, what I did that I intentionally set you guys up as sort of an independent operations group more than a rapid response group. And you guys were still rapid response in a different sort of way. You were sort of rapid response strategically.
Yes, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, you need to cut off supply route by putting static defenses here. Boom, we'd have it done overnight.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you guys were all about basically moving and creating a hard point.
Yes. Which we ended up being really we had like a private city that would just sort of like put down the drop ship, stick the engineers on the problem, boom, done within like 12 hours. Set up a cap for aerospace, and then the mechs for ground patrol. The end.
Yeah. Oh, and I hadn't decided. My initial thought was early on, you guys had your own dropship and your own and access to your own jump ship effectively. Well, they actually didn't negotiate for jump ship stuff, if I remember correctly.
No, I don't think we had our own jump ship. In fact, no, we didn't, because there were several times where like, okay, the contract's over here, so we get a jump ship to here, and we wait a week for this one to recharge, or hopefully pick up another one. What's the likelihood of that happening?
Exactly. But yeah, so I do want to ask you, Eric, before we get too much further afield, what do you want to see as a player in the first few sessions of a campaign? As a general sort of, not in terms of specifics, but sort of a general feel.
For a general feel, I like to see. I think the most important thing is seeing how the characters gel together. Like, I've got no problems with antagonistic relationships as long as they're cooperatively antagonistic.
Right.
And in fact, those can be a lot of fun to roleplay or watch being roleplayed.
Right.
So my favorite relationships have been antagonistically cooperative
right.
in RPGs. At the same time, I like to see the game master have like a rough and solid idea about where how things work, but be flexible enough to react to the players.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a hard thing to do. I found that to be a hard thing to do.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely tricky.
I have an idea for a tone and what's going to happen, and I need to watch out for what the players want to do also.
Right.
So, because they might decide to just turn left and I expect them to go right, which didn't ever happen in the Iron Kingdoms game.
Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about, Eric.
Although, to be fair, that group, once they committed to a course, stuck to that fucking course.
Yeah, we did. We definitely did.
We're deep underground with horrible cybernetically enhanced monstrosities chasing us, and we just found a vat full of people. Well, I had nothing to do but keep going.
Well, there wasn't really... admittedly, there wasn't a great place to back out of that at that point, But yeah, I that's one of the things I generally do. I mean, I imagine you've picked up on this.
Yeah.
But like early on in campaigns, I'll have sort of a rough idea of sort of a campaign arc, or at least a sort of a story arc for a campaign. But I generally the first few sessions I just sort of I plot out sort of a generic adventure type stuff for the first couple of ones that aren't necessarily tied into anything important.
Right.
It's mostly there as a way to get a little adventuring in for the group and for them to get to know each other mostly as
Yeah.
because even if the characters know each other and the players know each other, the players don't
don't know the characters yet.
right. Because it's very rare in my experience that a player will know exactly everything about their character during the first session.
Oh yeah, it usually takes me 3 or 4 to get a feel for a character.
Right.
Like usually have a pretty solid idea as to the character's initial personality, but I've had that change a lot over the course of a single session.
Right.
And like I said, it's all about like maintaining a certain degree of flexibility.
Yep. But yeah, so most of the fantasy games I've run, like the first adventure or two are sort of really not explicitly tied into anything. They're just like, okay, you guys are going out to do an event, going out to adventure for whatever reason you guys decide to come up with. Now, I've had a few where I've had more directed beginnings also. It somewhat depends on how my sort of the beginning campaign conceit of how the players get to know each other. I think is part of it. In a game where the way I've the players, most players' characters wouldn't really necessarily know each other. I'll find some way to bring them together to do that. And so it's a they'll be someone's hiring them to get to hiring people to go off and do something.
Yeah, that's always and the initial impetus for a campaign is always tough. And I'm totally not above just cheating. Go, you guys are all together. You've known each other for a while. Go. You have been hired.
Right. Well, again, it's it depends on what I generally that's I wouldn't necessarily cheating. That's just sort of establishing a framework for the group to start with. Trying to think of examples where I've done that. I mean, I know I've done that before with you guys.
Well, the old GURPS space opera game,
right?
Like the initial, it was very much like, okay, you guys are prisoners on a prison transport. Why are you there? Why would you work together? Go.
Well, I mean, that was I loved that conceit because it was a great way to. All right, so you guys are all prisoners on this transport, or you're on this prison transport for reasons. Most of your prisoners. Something with the transport goes horribly wrong, and the prisoners are able to get out of the prison cells because most of your prisoners. What do you guys do now?
Well, first thing we do is we find the doctor and punch her. That didn't actually happen.
No, it didn't.
Mostly because the doctor was really good at hiding.
Yes. But yeah, it was a good starting conceit just because it forced cooperation in the players to a certain degree. Because it's like, okay, well, if we don't work together, we're fucked.
Yeah, we will die. Or the best we can hope for is be picked up by another prison transport.
And fuck that noise.
Yeah, that's no fun at all.
So there was that. That was one of my more directed starting things. The Shadowlands game I ran online, basically the players were brought together to go off as a group of advanced scouts really to go back over the wall and see what the hell's going out in the Drow conquered lands. And so that was the conceit. And then they basically were out there doing stuff for they were specifically sent out to find someone who was supposed went out to do scouting things that hadn't reported back. So they were like, okay, well, we got to go find this person.
Because clearly, that's what we need to do.
Well, we're being paid to do effectively.
Right. Because clearly they obviously haven't already been killed and probably given up all the secrets that they had.
Amusingly, that hadn't happened. The person in question was actually perfectly fine.
Oh, okay.
It turned out later.
Oh, hey guys, what are you doing here? You haven't reported. What? It's oh, wow, it's a lot later than I thought.
Well, to be fair, they'd gone off to the Feywild for a while, so and time does work differently there.
Right, right.
But yeah, the early days really, those early sessions are it's really interesting because it's while I generally don't have I don't directly tie it into the plot. I usually will take things that happen during it and eventually work that into whatever meta plot I might have, or campaign arc or what have you. Because I personally generally prefer not to come up with a hard and fast campaign arc early on, just because I do know that players are an unpredictable and really lot. Um, and it's tricky to do that sort of thing.
Yeah. Um, One thing is if you know the players that you're going to be playing with,
Mm-hmm.
and this is I've learned the hard way, is try to avoid character archetypes that are going to make them grit their teeth and just hate it.
Right.
I'm reminded of the much maligned Rogue Trader game, where I decided I wanted to play my character as I wanted to play him like a hyena, basically. He would listen to whoever was like the most forceful and in charge.
Right.
And we had established that Roach wanted for Roach to be captain. And the thing is, Roach is trying very hard to be the nice guy, which is the exact opposite way to handle a hyena.
Right.
And it took a while for me and Roach to get on the same page that this isn't working.
Right.
In fact, one shouted in character argument happened. Which unfortunately scared Connor, the Game Master's kid.
Oh. Dope.
We're like, okay. Add a character meta moment. Okay, you're in charge. I'm your thug. Go. I mean, I thought it was great role playing, but yeah, it can't have that happen too often, if at all. Also, it was disruptive and derailing the game. So
Right. Exactly. That's one of the things you do want to. I do think you want to avoid is trying to find. You want to try to avoid, too much
yeah,
derailment.
I mean, you can have your awesome inter-character conflicts, but they can't be constantly derailing the game. Like that's just that's bad for everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Including, even if it's not immediately apparent, that people are having fun with the disruptive role-playing.
Right. Always tricky. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it might be helpful to sort of talk a little bit about the structure of some of the early adventures that we've both been involved in. Let's see. I guess from your point of view, Eric. Let's say I'm trying to think what game best to. Actually, this is actually a good one. The space opera game that I ran with you guys, the GURPS space opera thing.
Right.
I mean, so why don't you sort of go over sort of in general, very general terms, from what you saw from your point of view in the first couple of sessions of that.
Well, the first couple of sessions with that, there was the very, fairly clearly labeled "Steal Me ship. This is how you're getting around the galaxy,"
Right.
which I was totally cool with. um, but the way the weird relationship sort of developed, like Chris and I had established that I was the pirate captain. He was my first knight fairly early on, and there was a lot of, why do I listen to anything you do? And then I start talking. It's like, oh yeah, you're really charming.
Right.
Which was part of the conceit with the character. And Hannah's character being established very early on as a borderline liability until she's absolutely vital.
Right.
Also fucking hilarious.
Yes. And occasionally abjectly terrifying.
Yes. Like, the Doctor was my favorite character in that campaign.
The Doctor was freaking awesome. Uh, well, the other important note is that
Just constantly spouting madness and paranoid delusions.
I mean, the important initial conceit for that game was, as I said, the players were, they were prisoners on a prison transport being sent off to a prison colony.
Right.
And then, there was an accident. Something went wrong with the ship.
Yeah, we ended up out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, specifically, what happened was that the hyperdrive went wrong, and there's an old ship, so everything broke, and they ended up in a planet in the middle of basically, it's not like the uncharted territory. It's sort of similar to the uncharted territories from Farscape, but a little bit different. I mean, the problem is that they just didn't have good maps. They had literally had no real idea where they were,
and no one really able to, and no real authorities out there either. It was like ending up in the Balkans in the mid '90s, but with less bombs.
Yeah, there's that. I sort of basically dropped you guys effectively in the middle of. It's sort of a weird sort of cross between sort of the Golden Age of Pirates, Caribbean, and the Wild West.
Yeah. Although there is a fair amount of pressure from outside superpowers there also. Well, which made me think of the Balkans in the '90s with less bombs.
Well, there's that too. I mean, the big thing is it was the area was called the Unclaimed Territories because it was a bunch of space that was nominally technically claimed by one the major superpower, but they really didn't have. They were focused on other stuff at the time, and all the other major powers all laid claim to parts of it. And so it was this big morass where the people who lived there, they're colonists from various places, all living out there, but and native species and so on. But none of the major powers had any actual real control there. So it was all sort of run by whatever little local governments ran little small areas. Which is why I was thinking of it more like the Caribbean during the sort of golden age of pirates.
Yeah, fair enough. It technically claimed by Britain, but they couldn't really enforce their will. They're kind of busy dealing with the rest of Europe at the time.
Well, it was basically it was claimed by it's much like the Caribbean was claimed by Spain, Britain, the Netherlands, and France.
Right.
They all lay claim to it. They're like, this is ours. No, this is ours. This is ours. This is ours. So there were individual islands that were all run by. They had governors from back in Europe.
But they're governors in that they were effectively independent dictators.
It was more so yeah, exactly. So I was going for a large chunk of that feel, and I think I captured that fairly well.
Yeah, that worked pretty well, and we were pretty content to stay there right up until the giant nope moment.
Yeah, I did kind of.
Oh my god, there are giant predator cloaked spiders running around conducting experiments, and they're taking a liking to us. It's time to leave.
Yeah, you guys did nope the fuck out of that one. Which turned out was probably not a bad thing because I was burning out running the game. So.
Yeah, that was part of the reason for the nope was you were clearly starting to run out of steam and Chris was chomping at the bit to run something.
Right.
So it made logical sense for us to nope out and hand the reins over to him.
Right. So. But it was freaking hilarious. Just your guys' reaction to that.
Yeah, that was a yeah.
I mean, I had ideas for what was going to happen, what you guys were going to do dealing with them, but I think it was a good time to switch focus on that game.
It's also looking at it as a television series. It's a hilarious ending to the first season.
We're leaving.
We're leaving. Screw you guys. We're out of here. The end. What do you mean we got a second season?
Now we're in some other part of the galaxy. Whee! Oh God, why is this place not much better?
At least there aren't horrible spider monsters.
Yeah,
it's horrible snake monsters, but we know how to deal with those.
Yeah.
I never did reclaim my title as Scourge of the Space Lanes.
No, you didn't.
I mean, I never really gave it up because I insisted on telling everyone I was Scourge of the Space Lanes. But
Well, I mean that's yeah, of course. So why would your character not?
of course, he was a braggart and a blowhard.
But yeah, those first few sessions really did sort of set the tone for the game because you guys were there was you were out in the middle of nowhere. You are all sort of criminal types for the most part,
Yeah,
and you really had and I gave you access to a good ship.
gave us access to a fucking amazing ship, one that
Yes.
Chris clearly did not want us to keep.
Well, it was a very different style of game at that point though, so
Right.
it made perfect sense. Chris is changing the focus of the game, which is perfectly
Right.
okay. I mean, the big thing is that I dropped you out in the middle there, and you guys had one of the most powerful starships in that sector of space.
Hmm.
Uh, More powerful known starships, and I was perfectly okay with that because I knew that I could drop things on you that you guys couldn't just handle by having. But our ship's better than yours.
Right.
I kept dropping into situations where that didn't matter as much.
Yeah. Well, the tech curve was also much closer to our ship in Chris's game also,
Right.
and Chris was not above using filthy, dirty tricks to negate that advantage.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the fucking molecular limpet mines was a stroke of genius, honestly.
Oh, it was great. I loved that.
That was awesome.
And it's something I'd thought about doing something similar on the other side, but I wasn't. I mean, I was perfectly happy to basically say, okay, well, you guys don't need.
That was also totally Chris reading my character and knowing what he was going to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I was like, I'm role playing my character. He's brash and showy. He's going to fly right through the debris and come on the other side, guns blazing. You're going to do that, huh, Eric? Yeah, well, that's what the captain would do. Eric knows that's a dumb idea, but that's what the captain would do.
Right. So yeah, but I mean those. So I gave you guys a really powerful starship and basically let you loose in the space Caribbean. I mean,
Right.
lots of
Chris's
things.
was much more like friggin' was less space Caribbean and more opium wars. Space
Yeah.
opium wars.
Yeah, kinda. But yeah, so and those first few sessions where you guys got on your feet, you started making contacts with other pirates and such, and I figured, okay, well, we're going to be doing the piracy thing here.
Right.
We're going to be swashbuckling space pirates. Hooray!
Yar.
And there's only so far you can go with that before you start having to come up with some sort of meta plot, and that's what I did.
Right. With horrible spider monsters.
Yes, with a very old and powerful, dangerous alien race that were, mad scientists, effectively.
Chris started doing something similar towards the end, also with the whole ancient and powerful alien race. Except they were less secretive mad scientists performing unnecessary and creepy experiments, and more like, you would totally like to do this deal for us. No, that's what were your terms again? That you like us. We do kind of like you.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, the whole yeah.
Well, I mean, that's largely down to the fact that Chris and I are very different game masters. I mean,
Yeah. Meanwhile, I would have started doing something with more akin to eldritch monstrosities and their corrupting influences. So
right.
which you totally didn't see a bunch of in the friggin' Nine Kingdoms game. No.
What? No, never. But yeah, the tone of the campaign is I would definitely say that's sort of the big thing is it's definitely very important to set the tone reasonably early,
Right.
just so that players know roughly what to expect.
And that's important. Also, making sure I can't reiterate this enough. Making sure everyone's on the same page as to what to expect.
Right.
Like, You can't do a gritty street level survival by the skin of your teeth game when everyone's expecting high adventure Indiana Jones dungeon exploring.
Right. Absolutely. At least it's much harder to pull that off.
It's much harder to pull that off.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like the feng shui game I've been running with you guys. I mean, like I set some guidelines very early on for you.
Right.
I mentioned what I wanted, and one of the players had our friend Sam had an idea for a character, and then he heard that what I sort of wanted to go for these. Oh, well, I'll do something entirely different.
Yeah, which is props to Sam.
Yeah, yeah. He decided not to try to fit a square peg into a round hole, and I appreciate that. I didn't find a way to work around it, but
Chris does seem to be having fun being the straight man in that game.
Oh, I think he's having a blast. Wait, the what now?
Oh my god, the monkey's been right the whole time.
What the hell?
I thought he was just high. Well, it was also high.
Stoned out of my gourd, man. Oh god.
The trick to driving while stoned is to realize your perception is fucked. I haven't gotten a chance to do that yet.
No.
I did think about taking really high skill in driving, just so I could totally do the Blues Brothers through the shopping mall thing in the car. Realize we just passed an Orange Julius to a Yui and go back to get some.
Oh god.
Oh, did you guys want some too? I can go back. No.
We're being chased by bureau agents. Keep driving.
Man, who goes down the right aisle of the friggin' mall, man? That's gonna cause an accident. As carts and kiosks bounce off the bumper of our car.
New Cadillacs are in early this year. Oh my god. For a long time, the Blues Brothers was one of the most expensive movies filmed.
I can believe that.
Almost, and a significant chunk of that was because of that chase scene.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that chase scene from the mall must have been fucking expensive.
Well, not just that, it's just that entire chase, from leaving the concert back to Chicago, because that's a huge chase for and how many cars end up getting wrecked in that?
So many cars.
So even they're using cheap beaters for the most part. I mean, that's still a lot of cars.
Yeah.
I love that scene. I love that movie so much. Oh. So, all right, but back to sort of the more practical advice, I guess. Yeah, my general advice is don't worry too much about getting too deep into meta plot early on, because if you do, and the players zig when you're expecting them to zag, it makes it trickier to adapt to that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have sort of a more loose sort of feel on things, when they zag, you can incorporate that zag into what your plans are. If you don't have it as much written in stone, you don't feel like you have to go, oh crap, I got to throw out this stuff.
Yeah.
If you got sort of a general arc planned out, but not fixed details, then you can incorporate whatever changes that happen during the game into that.
It's not bad to have stuff written down relatively permanently. Just realize you've got it written in clay and you need to add some water to fix things if something changes.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it varies by game master and group too, obviously, and by campaign. I mean, I've had campaigns, as I said, the MechWarrior campaign was pretty much went where I expected to most of the way throughout the game. I mean, there are a few things where I had to adjust, but not as many as you might think. Whereas, I'm trying to think of games that you guys where I had to adapt more than I expected to.
Let me see here.
I know there's one where I did. I'm just blanking on which one it was. I mean, was there anywhere you thought where I started making wholesale changes to my overall arc? Well,
I know you have. I'm just spacing at the moment.
Oh, we can sort of quickly go through the game. Like, there was the Feng Shui game where whatever, the first one.
Oh, right, right.
There's just a lot of that was very a flexible game to begin with. I mean,
Yeah.
um,
Well, Feng Shui is sort of inherently flexible.
yeah, I'd agree with that. So there's that. There was the MechWarrior game, the space opera game, the D&D, the fourth ed game. Am I forgetting a campaign around with you guys?
Um, Space Opera game, fourth ed game, the the Hero Fantasy game.
Yeah, that didn't go long enough to get there.
Yeah, well, there are several much more self-destructive characters than anyone realized at first.
Yeah, that was yeah.
Looking at your Chris, my character wasn't much better, but
Yeah. I mean, I've not really had to do much zigzagging in the games I run with you guys online either. I mean,
yeah. Well, for the most part, like, both groups tend to be pretty experienced and pretty flexible.
and they seem to be amenable to following up the plot threads I drop in front of you.
Yeah, like, the general consensus seems to be like, well, there's clearly a plot here. Let's go do it.
Right.
There's clearly an explanation point over this NPC's head. We should go talk to them.
Oh, a wonderful thing that happened in the Iron Kingdoms game I run on Thursdays with the other group. They were, I dropped them out in the middle. They were, they basically were out in the middle of, doing adventure stuff, and a bit of local scenery. I threw in a set of ruins, and and I had some idea of what might be in there and such. And the players all said, "Well, that seems like sort of a side questy thing, and we should probably go investigate it." But like, none of us really in character really would want to. But we all agree out of character that we should. How can we figure out a way to in character get in there?
I don't remember.
But no, this is not with you. This is a different group. But
Oh, okay. Okay.
and their decision ended up being basically that my friend Jesse, he was playing a Arcanist noble with sort of an academic bent, and basically he decided that he'd go up there and start sketching the ruins, being sort of curious, and just wander in. And the rest of the party realized that he disappeared and realized where he went, and would just follow him in.
I can just imagine them going, all right, let's go follow him.
They're also okay. Wait, where's Lord Peter? Fuck. Walk up to the people. Have you seen the noble with us? We saw him doing some sketches over by the ruins. Fuck.
Oh.
Let's go get him. And of course, after they went in, someone triggered a trap that closed the doors so they'd explore the place. But
Oh, of course. I mean, obviously.
exactly. I'm very glad that I decided what was in there ahead of time, because I was like, I wasn't actually expecting them to go in, but I decided there's something there just in case they decided to, and they did. And I was very glad that I decided that.
All right, give me 15 minutes to pull something out of my ass.
I didn't have to do that, really. It's like, okay.
Right.
Because I know from experience that if I drop something like that in his just detail, people will focus on it sometimes the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially with some of the players in that group. That particular group is the one where the first GURPS sci-fi campaign I ran. The first session, they had their own sort of tramp steamer cargo ship type thing that they bought. I dropped, they basically were looking for work. And so I dropped a few jobs out there, including one that was foreshadowing for something that happened much later in the game. And they leapt at that one.
Of course they did. Because it was clearly the more interesting thing.
Well, that's the thing, it was like, okay, the jobs were basically, go do some charting stuff in this nebula. Basically, go chart this nebula. There was one that's like, run cargo to this small podunk nation. Those are the two I prepped adventures for.
Right.
There was something else that wasn't very interesting. And the fourth one was basically there's this old ruined starbase belonging to an antagonist power near a black hole in this crazy sort of weird sort of strange like nebula thing. It's like circling a black hole. That's like on the border between our area and the alien power whom we don't get along with.
So clearly that's the one we need to go to.
Right, and so they went to get the job, and the people they went to talk to basically looked at them and said, "Are you crazy? You guys like we've looked at the records on your ship. Are you sure you want to do this? I don't think you're cut out for it." I kept basically saying, "No, you guys really shouldn't be doing this one." And they did it anyway. They basically said, "No, we're going to do it anyways." And I was like, "Well, actually, in character, these guys were like, well, fine. If they go get themselves killed, that's their problem, not ours."
Okay, guys.
And so they went and I wish I'd thought of doing the sort of I wish I'd thought of the technique of the. I've mentioned before on stream. One of my favorite tricks is if there's like two options and I plan for there's two like a classic sort of possibility. The adventurers are going down. There are two things they could investigate. There's a cave network over here and an old wizard's tower over there. And you, as the game master, I'm expecting to go investigate the wizard's tower, but they decide to go investigate the cave, which I've not prepped. And the classic trick is, okay, well, I take what was in the wizard's tower and basically put it in the cave, and basically have sort of, the effective map layout will be basically the same, except that instead of going up, they're going down.
Right.
And I'll make some minor tweaks, but not much. So that looks like they have a choice, but they're actually going to where I want them to.
Wait, yes, which is very clever, and yeah.
And I've never done that with anybody ever.
No, you've never, ever done that. In fact, I remember you first telling that story and me going, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, I've done that to you guys on Monday, Tuesday at least 3 times that I can think of.
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, you guys want to go there. Fine. I can put the adventure there instead of over here. Fine, no problem. Go.
Sure.
Because it's one of my favorite game mastering tricks.
Yeah, and it's a good one.
Because as always, the key thing that I always try to keep in mind. I don't always remember it, but I don't always use it properly. But the important thing is that as the game master, you are the player's eyes and ears. You tell them what they see and hear and feel and taste.
Right.
And so
you taste cinnamon. What?
So so if they're going over there, there's no reason they can't know that. There's no reason that they would know that. And that's the other thing is like another one of my favorite tricks, especially in 4th edition D&D, is I can easily just like take any given monster and monster the party fighting and just change just change the description and it's an entirely new monster.
Yeah.
So if there's I want a kobold that does X and there's no kobold that does that, but there's a goblin that does, I can just say, okay, this goblin is now a kobold.
Ta-da!
Done. I mean, also means that you can do a lot of fun things with playing with the character's senses. Also, I mean,
oh yeah, and that's all good shit. And yeah. I don't have a particular love of fucking with the player's senses at all.
No, never.
No, not me.
Oh, God. But, yeah, so I definitely say early on, I mean, the really big thing to keep in mind is that you do have to keep in mind that the players are still finding their feet on their characters.
Yes.
Even players that have got characters, they've written, extensive backgrounds and have got everything to feel for the character. Things are going to change once they start playing them because as much as you've got in mind what you're going to do, the way you play the character will change depending on what happens, and things might happen that might make you realize that X isn't really appropriate for what you want to do. Might want to change it up, and it'll become Y. And that's also one of the reasons that, the other big thing is I'm generally very flexible in the first few sessions about if the players built their character in a way that they end up not liking, I generally allow them to make changes during the first few sessions without actually worrying about it. It's like, yeah. It's like, I don't like this ability that I've got. Can I get something else instead? Sure. In the first few sessions, I'm completely okay with that. because you're especially in a game that the players really haven't played much before.
Yeah, and I'm a big proponent of that. Like, nothing should be set in stone for the first few sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. The first few sessions really are about the players finding their feet, the game figuring out who their characters really are, and the game master figuring out exactly what the campaign is going to be long term. Because you can't know early on what the campaign is going to be overall for the main arc for a long time, because it's gonna change depending on how the players act and what they decide to do, and you have to be able to adapt to that. So otherwise, it sort of ends up entirely on rails and ends up being. I've always found the games that are completely on rails to be somewhat unsatisfying.
Mm. Yeah, I will certainly agree with that, and I sort of intentionally or not, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, tend to disrupt and derail them.
Well, that's the thing. I always expect the players to try to force the game off the rails in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll shove them back on if I feel the need to.
Like, usually I'm pretty game, but if it's clear that this is how it's going, the end, go, 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 why aren't you doing what I want? I'm going to, like, whether I mean to or not, start fucking with it.
Right. But I'm a big, as I said, I'm good at. I've over the years have gotten pretty good at nudging things back onto the rails if I need things to be on the rails for a little while.
Right.
And oftentimes I'll use tricks like swapping locations around and such because like, oh well, fine, you guys want to go over here and do this stuff.
Which is a great way to do it because maintaining that illusion of choice is vital.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because
nothing's going to make people rebel more than ham-handedly enforcing your dictates.
Right. I remember actually there's a D&D third edition D&D game I ran while I was still running third ed D&D, which the game in question we went in under the assumption that basically what I was going to do with it was I managed to get my hands on a bunch of inexpensive D&D modules, and we're just going to run a series of the modules as they went along. Because it was just to save time and such, and make sure we had sort of structured setup ahead, and I was like, okay, fine, I'm good with this, and such. And then we hit one adventure, which was the most railroady adventure I've ever seen. Oh my god, I'd only sort of skimmed through the adventure, and like, okay, so this is how the players get involved, and okay, the players now are going to go down into the sewers to go investigate. What if the players don't want to go down to the sewers to investigate? And then it basically says, if the players seem unwilling, here's what happens that forces them to do so. I'm like, oh my god. And the players ended up basically, declaring the town was named Railroad. So, yeah. It's amusing when that sort of thing happens, but...
yeah.
That literally only happened because and everyone was okay. No one was upset about it because we all went in assuming that this is going to be a series of pre-gen modules.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fun, but I would definitely do tweet. I would never do that exactly that way again. I definitely would revamp things and. I would definitely tool the modules more to the party than that in future.
Which always strikes me as being kind of tough to do.
It is, but it's just something that takes practice. At any rate, so you have any other sort of thoughts on sort of things to do in the early parts of the campaign?
Mostly it's just be flexible and be sensitive to everyone else's needs. This sounds like pretty common.
It sounds like common sense.
Common sense to any kind of social interaction, but
right.
Yeah, it only took me 30 years to figure it out.
Right. So,
but yeah,
we actually got some questions this week, I believe.
Oh, sweet.
So I want to get to those before it gets too late in the show, which is why I asked if you got any last thoughts. We'll come back to our final thoughts on this, but. The first question is from Robert, and he just asks what he would like to hear what we think about the table, whether we basically he mentions that the Dragon Age tabletop role playing game, and he wanted to know what we think about tabletop role playing games that are based on video games. Honestly, I mean, my personal take on it is if it's an interesting game world, I have no problems with that. I think it's a good idea. I think there's some. Eric and I both lamented the fact there's no tabletop Mass Effect game.
Yeah, which Jesus Christ, how has that not happened?
I don't fucking know. I mean, I mean, part of it is that sci-fi role-playing games tend to be less popular than fantasy ones for tabletop stuff.
Yeah, I guess so, but Jesus, how is that not like a thing? Like it writes itself. Well, the mechanics don't obviously, but
Right. But I've seen the I watched on Will Wheaton's tabletop show. They did a thing with the Dragon Age role-playing game.
yeah, that looks like a really fun system.
I think the system's neat. I'm personally not a big fan of the world for role-playing game per se. I'm not sure. I think Mass Effect works better for a role-playing game, tabletop game, than Dragon Age from my personal standpoint. But
Maybe I've been replaying Origins. Nah, I could see a lot of potential for a tabletop in there.
I guess I don't know, maybe. But I was overall, given that they're I think it works fine as long as it's a well-established, as long as there's a well-established world with significant background. I think they're fine. I mean, I think a Fallout RPG would be very interesting.
Yeah, that could be a lot of fun.
There are tons of them. I mean, it's effectively Gamma World without the crazy superpower mutant mutations.
And more power armor.
Not as much as you'd think.
It's always my first goal in any Fallout game is to get power armor.
I'm shocked.
Fuck everything else, I want power armor.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a fixation I have. Not at all.
Nope, not in the least. But yeah, as a rule of thumb, I think we both like them conceptually. I've never really played. I mean, given that there's always been tons of licensed RPGs out there, based on comic books, based on movies, based on novels,
Yeah.
based on TV shows. The fact that there are ones that are based on video games.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. It's and yeah, like Peter said, as long as it's based on as long as the world itself is interesting, yeah, I'm down for it.
Absolutely. So yeah, I definitely think that there are plenty of games which I think could merit a very interesting game. Like I think there are games where I don't think you could do a very good job with, like BioShock. I don't think would be very well. I don't think there's enough there for a role playing game because it's so focused on one specific place and that story's been told for those.
Yeah, it's focused on a specific story rather, and the world, everything about the world is in service to that story.
Right.
Which makes sense, and it's part of the reason why that game's story is so good, because everything is in service to that story.
Right. But that doesn't leave as much room for.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room for playing around in that world.
I mean, and the big thing is, it's not so much that there's not a lot of room; it's just that there's not enough that we don't know about anything else outside of what's been shown in the stories.
Right.
It's the same problem that I think would have doing like the Thief games, because there's just not a lot of detail about what's going on. There's some, but it's so focused on the Thief games are so focused on what Garrett's up to, and so I'd imagine that it would be a little bit tricky.
The Assassin's Creed games also feel like they seem to have the opposite problem. That they're so you've got the story about being an assassin and going around hunting Templars and whatnot, but all the world building stuff in there that's not lifted directly from history is so batshit bonkers and just nonsensical that I'm really not sure how you can build a serious RPG around that. And it desperately wants to be taken seriously.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, seriously, genetic memories and friggin' sci-fi VR and aliens and what a convoluted mess.
All right. I hope that answered the question. Let's move on to the next question we got. This one is from Justin. So Justin writes, they've had this idea for a while, not sure how to implement it or how to run it smoothly. Now, we all like Kaiju, and most of us like Pacific Rim. So I got about thinking about running a Pacific Rim game using Shadowrun. Now, the real point of using Shadowrun and not, say, Mechton Zeta is because the fact that it's a kaiju game is a surprise. And the end of the first otherwise typical session is K-Day, and then we see how it goes from there. What I need advice on is how to smoothly transfer the game to mecha fighting kaiju, and how much I should manage character creations that all have history with each other for the purpose of drifting. Really, I'm just asking about how best to run games with a twist or sudden or hidden part that the players don't know about.
One, that sounds fucking awesome. I so want to be a troll mecha pilot punching kaiju. An example that I didn't play in this game, but I heard about it as it was getting run, was a Cyberpunk 2020 game. And it was the first session was very much a standard Cyberpunk 2020 game.
Right.
But little clues about weird shit happening got dropped, and then people were like, okay, overarching plot, cool. And as it went on, the players slowly keyed to the fact that this is less Cyberpunk 2020 and more cult.
Aha.
It was very much had become an eldritch horror game with supernatural things and vampires and werewolves and all this other like crazy in the shadows stuff that even your typical cyberpunk character isn't aware of, that they have accidentally stumbled into, and now they're in trouble because of that.
Right. Interesting.
You wish corporations were after you was the premise.
All right. That's it's interesting.
And that the way they did that was again, this is all third-hand information, but like they're investigating some gang killings, particularly grisly ones, with like weird markings drawn everywhere and whatnot. I figure it's just gang writing. But as they investigate things and talk to people, like it becomes, how did they do this? It's been a long time since I've heard this story. Basically, by the third session, all the players had clued in that something was wrong, but the characters hadn't, until the Shoggoth showed up.
Ah, I see. So sort of Cthulhu tech.
Yeah. That was just one aspect of it, though, because there were also like vampires and werewolves and
right.
fake creatures got involved. It was very much a modern secret fantasy thing. Very much Secret World.
Very much Secret World, but higher tech.
But higher tech.
Interesting.
Yes. And it took about 3 sessions for that to get underway in the direction the Game Master wanted. But yeah, the big reveal was tracking the thrill killers back to their lair to find it just scrawled with all sorts of occult carvings, and the big carving in the middle of the floor with the slain gang members all around and the giant shuddering monstrosity in the center,
right,
pounding on the edge of the magic circle, which someone was dumb enough to accidentally trip over.
Oh dear. Well, that's unfortunate. For most games, depends on how big a twist it is and how much that twist is going to impact the game going forward. Not just in terms of not in terms of plot, but in terms of how important the initial character creation, the backgrounds and such matter. For a game where you can move forward without without things being too weird, I think that sort of the just keeping mum about it and then dropping the twists on them works. Although you have to be sure that the twist you're dropping is something the players will enjoy.
Yes.
Like dropping changing from a cyberpunk game to a horror game midstream, normal cyberpunk to a horror game midstream. If the players don't like horror stories,
it's not going to fly.
It's not going to fly, and they'll get kind of upset. But if they enjoy horror stories and you still manage to make it feel like a cyberpunk game that the players are interested in playing, so they got, okay, I'm really enjoying cyberpunk, and I'm getting horror too.
Yes,
that works brilliantly.
That's That's one of the things I love about Shadowrun. Actually, is I get my cyberpunk dystopian future with all my fantasy, um,
Right,
not cliche tropes,
right,
and it's awesome together. It's two great tastes that taste great together.
right. But and I've done a few games with like big twists where things aren't what the players were expecting for the game. Well, the what the characters were expecting.
Yeah,
Like I ran a brief game that didn't go very long with Eric and the Monday crew. That was a start out. This is a sci-fi game, and the players got basically trapped in a classic fantasy world.
right. You also told us right off the bat.
But the thing is,
twist
I
was.
told them ahead of time about that because I'm not sure how well that would have flown if I hadn't.
What do you mean? I spent all these character points on friggin' like hacking, and the most advanced technology they have is steel weapons.
Right, because I didn't want the players to. I want to make sure the players all had something they would find useful in
Right.
in the fantasy world. So and the
Now that
and,
doesn't mean that some of us didn't take shit like computer operations.
right. Well, of course you would, but I mean I found that letting them know a bit ahead of time helped.
Yes.
In the situation that Justin's writing about. Okay, so you're not gonna have the problem with the players not liking where the story's going because they all love kaiju and they love Pacific Rim. The big twist there changes, so they're going to be ones end up basically piloting the Jaegers. Jaegers,
Jaegers.
Jaegers. Sorry,
German, man. It's German.
yeah. Jaegers. Uh, it's going to be tricky if you really don't want to tip your hand.
Because one easy way to do it without fucking the players is because of the whole like neural link drift thing going on. Just have them default to whatever their close combat skill is when piloting the Jaeger.
Okay.
Like, yeah, or their best ranged combat, if they're using a ranged Jaeger.
Right, and I would definitely say.
It's amazing how similar heavy pistols are when you're firing clusters of missiles at a giant monster.
The other thought that I've got is that if you need the characters to have sort of past history with each other, and if I remember correctly, Pacific Rim, it's the Jaegers are piloted by pairs of pilots.
Yes, there's yeah, they're piloted by pairs of pilots, and usually they need to be psychologically compatible. They don't necessarily need to have known each other beforehand, but they need to be psychologically compatible, or it's just
All right, so I would basically say, I would say before character creation to emphasize to players that work together and make sure that at least you have at least one other person in the party that you are psychologically compatible with in terms of getting along and be able to work together.
yeah,
Because you're going to basically say that being able to split off into teams of two and be able to work well together is going to be important.
right.
Just as a general theme. The other thing I think I could think of is sort of to help tie their backgrounds together a little bit is stealing a concept from the slightly revamped version of Traveler that Mongoose did, where for
That's
each
a
of these
great
sort of
idea.
events and your backgrounds and such that you tied another player, each of the players who were involved being tied together got a cookie bonus, like an additional skill point that they got, which is bigger in
Yeah.
Traveler than it would be in other games. You give them some minor like character building bonus for having ties to another character and such. So that, like two characters who actually have like ties to each other will get some minor cookie bonus of some sort.
Yeah,
And-
nothing game breaking.
Right.
Like, but
I don't
yeah,
know.
it's
I
not
don't know
like-
what a minor cookie bonus in Shadowrun would be because I don't know Shadowrun well enough.
Depends on what edition you're running.
Given.
But like say third edition, like I don't see a skill point being a single skill point somewhere being too game breaking. Like it's not like you're freaking giving them extra stat points.
Right.
Like I'll just buy an extra point of magic. Woo!
Right.
Now my sorcerer can like fling 4-7 fireballs that explode in my brain.
Exactly. So I think something like that might help, but don't go too. Make sure it's not. Make sure it's a cookie that the players will want and will enjoy, but it shouldn't be too game breaking or big. Something that'd be nice to have. Clockwork Grunt in the chat has a question. How does a player deal with the vital party members making incredibly stupid decisions, such as running ahead, climbing a wall into a room with no light, with a bugbear, and getting eaten?
Well, try to keep within 2 inches of them so you can shield guard the mage hunter. Sorry, that was mean. I've actually both been this person and been the person trying to cover for them a lot. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been this guy. I have totally been this guy. I have been I will charge this guy and use him as a speed bump to catapult me into the back of the enemy ranks, and I did that all the time. Freaking the fourth ed game.
Yeah, yeah. But so how do you deal with it as the rest of the party? Um,
That's that's tough, honestly.
it is.
Which is what part of the reason why I try not to do it so much anymore. Doesn't mean I won't do it sometimes because it's fucking awesome.
I'll
But it
punch
can
the
be very
Mazuku.
frustrating for other people also.
I'm gonna punch the Mazuku.
Come on, that was awesome. Zarkov is totally that guy.
Yep.
Yeah, we've all done it. We've all been that guy. Or rather, I've been that guy a lot. And I've also had to deal with that guy. And part of it is, it can be frustrating, but it's... the occasional word in their ear, like, is that the right thing to do, you think? Can go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Or that doesn't strike me as tactically sound. That sort of thing.
It's tricky. Yeah, basically,
Jeez, yeah.
talk with them about it. I mean, honestly, and
Yeah, have a conversation, and wow, I'm just thinking back. It's like I'm that guy a lot more often than I realized. The more I think about it.
but I don't, don't be combative about it. Just sort of ask them about let them know situate that that was because part of it might be in character, and that's cool. But you don't want to have it, completely derail and ruin the game either. So,
Yeah,
talk about it. If I ask them, don't ask them what the fuck were you thinking. Ask them, so what was your thought process there? Because I'm curious to know why you did that in character.
yeah, and that's yeah, that's the important thing. Like the last thing anyone wants is anyone that you'd want to play games with. The last that they'd want is to ruin other people's fun.
Right.
And if they're ruining other people's fun, they might not just realize it.
Yeah. So talk to them about it. I mean, as we stressed many times over the course of the show, the show, communication is crucial.
And that's not to say like being the frustratingly aggressive guy can't be fun for having a frustratingly boneheaded guy can't be fun for the rest of the crew either. Because I have also seen it done well where it's like, well, here's the obvious adventure hook. We have to go save so-and-so again.
So yeah, I mean, just talk to them about it, but don't get combative or anything like that.
The occasional, is that a tactically sound move? Is usually all you need. Unless in my case I'm feeling particularly cavalier, in which I'll go, no, but I'm doing it anyway.
You punched the Mazuku. And then you did it again.
Because I have two fists. Oh, man.
Yeah. All right, so I think that's it for questions for this week. Let me double check the forums, make sure I didn't miss anything there. Nope, nothing new there. All right, so anyways, that's going to do it basically for this week. But before we go, any final thoughts on the early days of role-playing game campaigns, Eric?
Just, keeping flexible is important.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not saying you need to be a slave to everyone else's ideas and concepts, but keep in mind that it's a collaborative
Yeah,
experience.
I would agree with that completely. And just be ready to adapt if need be, basically.
Yeah.
And again, communication, communication, communication. Be sure you guys are talking to each other about it, and make sure that everybody's cool with what's going on. And be ready to make changes as need be. And I think that's going to basically do it for this week. Thanks everyone for watching tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks to the live stream for being here. As always, live stream community. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. We record the show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. here, at 7 p.m. Eastern, here on twitch.tv/MechaGM. If you're listening to the recording, this is on YouTube, and you enjoyed the show, please feel free to like and subscribe. That way you'll know when new episodes go up.
Yeah, I'm completely spacing on the rest of the spiel.
Well, yeah, I'm getting to that. But yeah, if you've got questions for us, we'd like to save time at the end of each show for answering viewer questions. You can email them to us. Our email address is surlygrognards@yahoo.com, surlygrognards@yahoo.com. Or you can hit us up you can hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @MechaGM. Or you can, I guess you could post them in the comment section on the video on YouTube or on the forums, which you can find at mechagm.forumer.com. If you've got feedback for us, ways we can make the show better, please let us know. We love getting that stuff. Any of those ways to contact us are entirely useful and entirely valid ways to do so. If you got show topic suggestions, we love getting those.
We totally love those. Holy crap, do we love those.
So please send those in, on the forums or via email or what have you. As I mentioned, I do tweet out when the show's going to be going live, so keep an eye. Or if we have to, start the show late, or if we're going to have to take a week off or what have you, I'll tweet that out on my Twitter, so keep an eye on that if you want to keep an eye on sort of comings and goings with the show. Other than that, I think that's it for this week. So thanks for listening, guys. We hope you all had fun. I hope you got something useful out of this. You may have not. I don't know. But and we'll see you guys next week here on twitch.tv/MechaGM. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys later. Keep on gaming.
All right. Bye, humans.